Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a story that highlights the struggles of balancing generosity and dealing with the unreasonable demands of others. Imagine wanting to give your child a special gift, only to face unexpected obstacles from your ex's family. This is a gripping tale of a mother who wanted to surprise her son with a car for his birthday, but things took a shocking turn when her ex's family got involved. Let's unravel this nerve-wracking story titled, "I wanted to buy my son a car for his birthday, but my ex's family made outrageous demands." Let's get started. I had my son way too young with my then boyfriend. We split up when he moved away for college and became an absent father when he returned for the summers. He became more active when he moved back after graduating, and we started doing 50-50 custody. I was 24 then and went to community college and got into sonography school, and I'm now an obstetric sonographer. During that time, it came out that my ex had never graduated and was in enormous debt from gambling during his time away. It explains why, with a full-ride scholarship and a degree in a high-paying field, he was working at the mall. Once I got a job, I was able to upgrade my standard of living and provide a better life for me and my son. He's now nearly adult and entering senior year soon, and I want him to get a lovely gift to celebrate his birthday this summer. I asked him earlier this year when we talked about cars, what car he would want, and he said a 2023 Camry. While we're financially well off and don't struggle, I know he thinks buying a car is out of our budget, so he didn't suspect a thing. Here's the issue: I was speaking to my ex's sister, whom I am semi-close to, and I brought up the idea to her. She seemed excited, but then said I shouldn't. She said it makes her brother look bad since he doesn't have a car, and it would crush him to know that his son has a brand new paid-off car while he barely scrapes by. I told her that's not my issue and that it's not my fault he doesn't have his life together. He's 33 years old and still lives at home, doesn't have a car, and constantly switches retail jobs after spending weeks stretching out and watching orientation videos as long as he can. My son told me he recently spent almost 2 months watching Home Depot orientation videos and then quitting the first week on the floor. He doesn't want to work hard, so why should I feel bad? After a few days, she calls me and says she has an amazing compromise. She told my ex that I had planned to buy a special gift for my son this summer and asked if he was willing to pitch in. He offered $80, and she's going to add another $80 for a total of $160. Then we could tell our son we bought it together and he feels like his dad pitched in. This is for a $34,000 car. I told her no thanks, I have it covered, and she got upset and said that this could bring my son closer to his father, since they don't have much of a relationship, and not to be a selfish idiot. Ever since I said no, she called me twice, calling me an idiot and saying I should either let him chip in or not buy it at all. Am I the idiot? Ha ha ha, is she kidding? Not the idiot. So, she doesn't want her brother to feel bad that his son has a car and he doesn't? OMG, they need to grow up. He does not work to improve his life, it sounds like, and that's not for you or your son to feel bad about. And now they want to chip in a couple of $100s on a $34,000 car and try to make it sound like they bought it too? Please, your son is smart enough, he would see through that anyway. Also, if he isn't close to his son, that sounds like that's on him, as well. Good for you for working hard to give him a good life, you don't owe them anything. Yeah, $160, how generous of them. Has this man even paid child support all these years? Oh, he was just busy gambling. Dad can suck it up and reap what he's sown. His sister's crossing a major line, thinking that $160 is enough. If it was a difference of even $1,000 or $2,000, I'd maybe entertain it. But what they're proposing is insulting to the work you've put in. LMFAO, $80, we got a big spender for an ex. The gift that you worked hard for, not ex, not his sister, it's your moment with your son. If dad and sister-in-law want a moment, well, they can work for it, as you did. I say again, your son is a smart kid, he sees your ex lacking, he's not gonna believe for a minute that your ex significantly contributed to the car. Here's the other thing, say son believes ex paid for half, the ex could turn around and guilt the son into lending him the car, because he sacrificed so much to help pay for it. Go with the truth, it's the best option in the long run. Congratulations on your son's graduation, and tell your ex to buy some fuzzy dice or whatever, but remind your ex that these are a prop and he can't gamble with them. My wife is flying to see family for just 4 quick days this weekend, and the airport is 1 hour away. She returns back and lands at 10:30 a.m. on Independence Day. We have kids, and I want to take them to our town's wet parade and fun activities that morning for the celebration. We didn't make part of last year's celebration, and I was looking forward to this year's. She asked me to drop her at the airport. Initially I was all for it, but then learning about her return time, this is where the disagreement began. Our family car is in the shop, but we have a loaner from the dealer. I asked her to think about driving herself, so we could celebrate the festivities, and she instantly got mad. That'll cost us hundreds more dollars, parking is $8 a day. The loaner isn't ours, what if it sells while I'm away? Then they wait. Why can't you support me through this and not be selfish? Who's selfish here? The festivities go on all day. I'm only asking for 2 hours, 9 to 3 p.m. is the duration of the festivities. These were some of the statements immediately made. She even said, my dad wouldn't hesitate to support his wife. I think her dad would shrug and say, just drive yourself. Am I the idiot, because I want to take the kids to our town's 4th of July celebrations, and would prefer my wife drive herself to and from the airport? Not the idiot. Airport pickup and drop off is a luxury, either my wife and I offer the other, if the stars align just right, otherwise we hire a cab. Loaners don't sell while they're being loaned. That's not how the process works. Parking wouldn't be hundreds of dollars, it would be $32. Having said that, you could pick her up by 11, be home by noon, and still attend the festivities for 3 hours, in ideal conditions. Barring any flight delays, traffic jams or small kids' meltdowns, there are a ton of things that can go wrong, especially with the kids in the car. Anyone with children knows that a 2-hour round trip on Google Maps doesn't equate to a 2-hour round trip in reality. It's unreasonable for the wife to make that demand, when she can just drive herself, with much less of an imposition on her time, than it would be on his. I agree with every word. OP isn't some deadbeat dad, wanting to hang out with his buddies on the 4th. He wants to take the kids to a kid-centric event. I'm a mom, and if I were in this situation, I'd tell my husband, have fun, I'll try to join you when I get home. In my honest opinion, the wife's being extremely selfish, and not thinking of her kids, or her husband. The wife needs to suck it up and drive herself. Don't back down OP, you're the only one in this situation thinking of the kids. Take them to the parade, and have a great time. This is so stupid. My girlfriend thinks I'm an idiot, so I want some second opinions. We're both quite serious tea drinkers, being from the UK, at least 3 cups a day. I have mine with 1 spoon of sugar, she has no sugar. We've been dating for a year now. In the first month of dating, things were great, and she made my tea properly. Then she slowly started to forget, and made us both cups with no sugar. I gently reminded her that I like it with 1 sugar, but she wouldn't remember, and kept making me non-sweet tea. So I decided to just make both of our teas going forward throughout the day to save the hassle. However, lately, I've been tired of having to make all this tea, and I asked her if she could make me a cup once in a while. I don't think it's fair that I make her nice teas, and she can't return the favor. Today she made me tea with no sugar, once again, and I got fed up and asked her why she doesn't add sugar to mine. It feels deliberate, to which she told me she forgets, and that's just how she does it, and I can add my own sugar after. So I said that wasn't the point, and moving forward, until she can make my tea nicely, and take my taste into account, I will no longer be making her tea. I remember her little dietary quirks, and it just feels off that she won't remember this for me. She says it's stupid for me to go on strike about making her tea, and I'm weaponizing it, and it takes 2 minutes. However, I'm tired of making her perfect tea, while she doesn't even put any effort into mine. Am I the idiot? People are gonna get onto you with, it's just sugar, but I get your point. It's the effort. You take the time to remember what she likes, and do that if you're making for both of you, and she doesn't return the favor. It feels lopsided to you, hence the question, you are not the idiot. Exactly, they've been dating for a year now. It's not like it's some complicated Starbucks order. It's 1 spoon of sugar. I'd honestly start making the tea, but putting 1 sugar in her tea as well. If she needs help remembering your preference for something as simple as tea, why should you go to the trouble of it? It's a simple lack of respect. If he wasn't British, I would have suggested that as well, but he's probably too darn polite for stooping to the level the rest of the world would applaud, Canadians probably being the exception. As an American who used to drink sweet tea, I cannot relate. LOL, we drink tea syrup in this area. No sugar? Get out, OP. You can have a tea war if you like. But the real question here is a fairly fundamental relationship question. Do you want to remain in a relationship with this person? My partner and I are typical sleep-deprived parents of 3 children, ages toddler to infant. I'm a stay-at-home mom while my partner commutes for work, and depending on which site he's at, can be on the road for more than 6 hours a day. When necessary, he'll get a hotel room closer to the job site. Getting up with the children during the night has always been my responsibility. The logic behind this is that his sleep should be the priority due to the dangers of driving while drowsy. I've always accepted this without complaint. However, since the birth of our youngest, my partner's begun to accuse me of intentionally disrupting his sleep if the baby wakes him up at night. This past week, my partner had a few long days and was gone from early Wednesday morning until late Friday night. Please, no judgment, but I was so busy, exhausted, and overwhelmed during that time that I didn't get the opportunity to shower. I felt disgusting. It took ages for the children to fall asleep with the excitement of daddy being home. But around midnight Friday night, I finally got the opportunity to treat myself to a shower. I hoped the baby would stay asleep, but if he didn't, there was finally another adult to cover for me. And as the next day was Saturday, there was no commute to worry about. Well, of course the baby woke up, and my partner was absolutely livid. I was accused of being selfish, vindictive, unsupportive, and using the baby as a weapon to punish my partner for getting more sleep than me. I was called every curse word in the book, and when I asked why my partner at no point tried to pick up or soothe the baby, I was told that he doesn't have tits to put the baby back to sleep. So, what would be the point? At first, I was equally angry at my partner for choosing to lash out at me instead of caring for the baby. However, now that I've calmed down, I've started worrying that I was wrong. While my partner's accusations were wildly off base, I may have been an idiot to just assume it would be okay for the baby to wake him, especially when the baby's nighttime care has historically been my responsibility. So, am I the idiot for assuming it would be okay to let the baby wake up my partner because I desperately needed a shower? Not the idiot. Even though you're a stay-at-home mom, that doesn't mean you're the only one with parental responsibilities. Letting your partner sleep while you care for the baby at night so he's not driving drowsy is a fine concept, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have to do anything ever at nighttime. And the fact that it was a night when he didn't have to drive the next day is the icing on the cake. Taking a shower for the first time in several days while there's another adult around is not a selfish act or weaponizing your baby. It's basic human hygiene that you shouldn't have to apologize for. Tell your partner it's time to start being a parent. How would he do this without tits? It's common knowledge that women change diapers with their tits. I'd go so far as to call it weaponized incompetence. Sure, he doesn't have breasts, but sticking the baby on the boob isn't the only way to get them back to sleep. And even if it was, does he still not have a responsibility to at least comfort his child until the mom returns to feed the baby? Come on now, stop acting like you're helpless in this situation. I bet he got perfect long sleep time, Wednesday and Thursday nights away, while you were doing 100% of child care and couldn't even get a shower for yourself. You've given him way too much of a break on care duties if he doesn't even know how to pick up his baby to soothe it. Girl, stop allowing this person to procreate using your uterus. Please stop. That level of aggression would be an absolute deal breaker for me. This happened over a year ago, but this situation has still affected my family and my mom won't stop getting on my husband's and mine, case even now. My father had diabetes and his health was deteriorating fast. He was in the hospital and then got out. After he got out, he was weak and was trying to rest at home. I come from a big family with a lot of siblings. One of my sisters travels all through Europe and is frequently moving. I'm in the US and I haven't been back to Europe in over a decade, but I talk a lot on the phone with them. We'll call my sister Anna. Anna suddenly moved into my parents' house with her husband and 8 children for an unknown period of time and for reasons no one knows. Well, she had nowhere else to go, apparently. My mom is the closest with her and has always been sympathetic towards her, so she's fine with her being there. My dad was exhausted, coming home from the hospital just a day or two ago. My husband was talking to him on the phone and heard all these kids screaming and making noises. He asked if everything's okay. My father just said he's tired, overwhelmed, can't take it anymore and just wants to rest. My dad talks to my brother who lives there and talks about the environment in the house. My brother said it was a disaster and pretty noisy since the kids were running everywhere. My mom, however, said that it's not a big deal and not that noisy. Well, we all just had a feeling my dad was going to die any day now and these were his last months alive. My husband and I felt bad for my dad and thought he deserved peace in his last moments. My husband asked to speak to my mother and she said, no, not now. So my husband asked to speak to Anna's husband. He said, if you don't leave this house by 7 p.m, then I'll pay for a rental home where he can rest his final days. It's not okay for this man to work all his life and he can't even die peacefully in his own home. I'll be calling back to make sure you've left. They tried to talk back and downplay everything. But my husband really put his foot down and ultimately they left. After about 2 days, my father had to go back to the hospital and died. My mother's still upset with me and my husband that he kicked Anna and her family out. She still comments to my husband and acts like we were really out of line and rude. I want to add that Anna was and still is building a new home near my parents' house. So they have some money. Am I the idiot for letting my husband kick my sister's family out of my parents' house? Edit. I just want to add since there's a little confusion that this was our last resort since it's pretty big. But my mom didn't want to speak to us at all and always sides with Anna. She was babysitting the kids and ignored my father. So he was pretty much by himself after coming out of the ICU. But my dad was so weak and was mentally done. When my husband inquired about Anna's husband, he said, don't worry, it'll all work itself out. You are the idiot. It was not your husband's place to dictate what happens in other people's homes. You crossed the line. And how do you know that the stress of your sister and the children moving out didn't hurt your father in his dying moments? Why would he want the end of his life filled with family strife? Your inappropriate actions may have caused him more hurt. You fools. Not only that, you hurt the living people who were the ones that were there with him in his dying hours. You caused more stress for your mom, siblings, and nieces and nephews than necessary. Wow, how selfish of you. Imagine not being able to cook your own meals after a lifetime of cooking, not being able to drive a car, sign your name, write or wash your body, or convey your thoughts clearly. Your one strong body is a shell of itself. You have trouble walking or picking things up. Now imagine how exhausting that must feel, day in and day out. Then add 8 noisy young children and an unsupportive wife to that scenario, when you're just trying to survive. You and your husband are not the idiot. At least you tried to give your father some peace in his final days. Sorry for your loss. Agreed, your husband did the right thing. I've dealt with serious health issues, and I can't imagine having a bunch of kids around. When you're suffering, all you want is to be left alone in peace. Your mom probably needed their presence to distract her. That's my guess. Regardless, all you can do now is to say, yes, Mom, we know. You've told us multiple times. And change the subject. As we immerse ourselves in today's tale, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences with family dynamics and the challenges they may bring. Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to Heartstrings and Home for more heartfelt stories that resonate with the soul. Together, let's explore the enduring power of love, resilience, and the bonds that define us. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If this story resonated with you or sparked any thoughts, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking stories and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. And if you have a story of your own that you'd like to share, drop it in the comments or send it to us. We'd love to feature it in a future video. Thanks for watching. Hello, lovely viewers, and welcome back to our storytelling session. Today's tale is one of shock, betrayal, and sweet, sweet revenge. Picture this: you come home early to surprise your beloved spouse, only to find them entangled with someone else in your own bed. It's the stuff of nightmares, isn't it? But what happens next is a plot twist you won't see coming. Join me as we delve into the story titled, I Came Home Early to Surprise My Wife and Found Her in Bed with Another Man, Here's How I Got My Revenge. What he then came home to was terrifying. He saw his wife in bed with her affair partner, but rather than confronting them, he recorded them for proof, then walked out and ghosted her. Now, she's history. Let's get into today's story to find out what happened. So, I went on a work trip for a week and told my partner of 3 years, ex, that I was coming home on Sunday, but I had actually booked a fly-in yesterday and take her on a surprise date for her birthday, which I otherwise would have missed. I messaged ex happy birthday yesterday morning and asked what she was doing for the day, to which she replied she would be having a wine and movies night with her friend, Y, who lives in our apartment block. I reiterated that I could not wait to be home on Sunday. She said she couldn't wait and that she loved me. It has been really hard to write and relive this, but when I got home, I parked out by the front of the building on the street, and when I walked through the code gate, I couldn't see lights on up by our balcony. I did see Y's lights on, so I assumed X would be at her place. I didn't even have to enter, as her place was on ground level, and I saw through her window she was on her couch watching TV alone. I figured maybe X was out, so I walked up our 3 flights of stairs, and as I approached the door, I could hear it, and my heart just sank. The sound of R&B music, moaning and knocking. The door wasn't even locked, and with the way it's positioned, opening the door gave a direct view of our bedroom. I just slightly opened the door and saw my girlfriend straddled on top of who I instantly recognized to be a guy from the gym we go to. I think what stood out to me more was that it looked like it was unprotected sex, as I could see everything. I quietly closed the door and my soul just felt like it floated out of me. I knew they never heard me or noticed the door. I sat on the step for a good 5 minutes to process. This has always been my worst nightmare, but to literally have it play out exactly how I dreaded, another man in our bed just gripped at the heart. I couldn't cry as it felt so surreal. Was this really happening? Was I dreaming? The continued sounds quickly brought me back to earth. I got up and walked out of the building and towards the front gate. Y had spotted me through the window and called out to me and waved, gesturing for me to come over. I do get along very well with her, and in the past she had told X how highly she thought of me as a friend too. She had also openly told X that she found me attractive and asked if I had single friends who were also my nationality, from New Zealand. There had always been chemistry between us the first time I met Y, but that always stayed buried in my mind. I put on a brave face and walked into her apartment. We hugged and she asked what I was doing home early. I told her I had dates mixed up and wasn't she supposed to be having birthday drinks with X? She seemed confused and told me that X said she was going out for drinks with some of our gym friends. Go figure. I instantly burst out in tears and cried for what felt like forever, and she got quite worried asking what was wrong, did something happen to me, etc. I struggled for words but blurted out that I had just walked in on the two of them in our bed. Her face turned so white and she just hugged me and started to cry too. She knew I was a joker, but I think she knew this was no joke. I just started talking out of frustration, saying that I didn't know what to do, that they could be up there all night, and that this was my nightmare. We had no issues in our relationship other than her lack of interest in sex once every 6 weeks. It's a wonder I lasted 3 years with her, and I had accepted that a long time ago. Y laughed through her tears and told me she had always been single and not had sex the entire time she knew me, and joked that maybe we could both use it. That actually made me laugh a bit too, and I hugged her, thanked her, and for a second forgot X was upstairs cheating on me. I asked her if I could stay there for the night as I had nowhere to go, and I slept on the couch. I am still here a day later. I watched the guy leave in the morning and watched in tears when he came back this evening. I'm supposed to be home tomorrow afternoon. I haven't texted X all day, but she hasn't texted me either. Truth be told, the only comfort I have now is with Y. How do I deal with X? Do I walk up there and interrupt? Do I call? Firstly, I want to thank everyone for their views, opinions, and advice. I'm still trying to keep up with reading the comments. I appreciate those saying I should have had a backbone or spine. To be honest, I'd be saying the same things to someone else. This is my first experience with infidelity, so it was easier to judge until it actually happened to me. Anywho, before I tell you what has happened today, I will answer a few questions. Me. I have my own business and run it end to end by myself. I travel maybe 3 times a year to meet with production facilities and do quality checks for my product. Physically, I am 6 feet 6 inches, 124 kilograms, and I play rugby and have done a lot of boxing, so I can definitely defend myself. However, I do not go around using that. I absolutely tower over that piece of crap guy in every way. I earn a very comfortable living, as does X, so a split will not financially cripple either of us. And we're not married. The tears have been shed. I realize this was a blessing in disguise, and I know what I need to do. Apartment. We split all the bills 50-50 and have 4 months and a week left on a year-long lease which has both our names on it. We had been actively looking for a home to buy. I guess I dodged a bullet there. Why? What a woman. Aside from her personality, she is absolutely gorgeous. How she is and always has been single, I will never know, and she has not been intimate with anyone in over 3 years, according to X. She has been on my side through it all without saying a cruel word about X. She understands it was a bad thing to do towards me and that it does not involve her. That being said, she has said once X inevitably owns up to it, she will likely stop being friends with her. She has not tried to come on to me like a rebound and has just been super supportive. That alone speaks volumes to her character. X works in a hospital and is very attractive. Nice woman, but can be quite self-centered. In hindsight, we were basically just friends. We have only ever had protected sex because she does not want to get pregnant or go on the pill, and it was once in a blue moon. I guess I just accepted it and got too comfortable in the relationship being what it was. I'm just trying to get my head around how she never even showed signs that she was cheating. I know I'm not perfect, but I have always been good to her, always cooked for her, and did a lot around the house. We went on dates regularly. I told her things about her to make her feel loved, and I always got brushed off after what I thought was a good night. I now question why. If she didn't want me, why did she stay for so long? My plan. I intended to call her this morning to say my flight would be leaving earlier and that could she pick me up at the airport earlier. With the airport being a 40-minute drive away, I would use this time to go up and pack all of my things and rush them to my car. Y said I could put some of it in her spare room. Once X noticed my things missing, she would try to call me, message me, etc., and I would simply respond with a photo of the two of them in bed. After reading comments, I decided the cruelest punishment for her would be to have no closure. I would explain to the property manager my circumstances and go and stay with a friend until I could find a new place. X could cover the rent. She could certainly afford it. I do have the option to stay with Y, but that is way too close to X and I do not want to do anything with Y that could ruin our friendship, even though I know her and I are inevitable. The outcome. I went up very early in the morning and very quietly opened the door. Fortunately, they were asleep on the bed, so I took a photo of them, but it was weird. I almost felt guilty about violating privacy when my entire relationship was violated. I did not feel sad anymore, just angry and betrayed. I noticed his shoes on the floor next to my various, much larger pairs. I decided to take a photo of those and use it first. I figured it would be a more subtle way that she would likely lie about until I hit her with the photo of them in bed. I went back down to Y's and waited around for another hour or so until I was certain X would be awake. I tried to call but got no answer, and twice again to no answer. I looked at Y and we both just knew what was happening. After about a half hour, she called me and sounded very much awake and like everything was very much normal. I tried to put on my normal voice and told her my flight was leaving 2 hours earlier than I thought. I asked if she could collect me at 1 p.m. She said yes and that she loved me, that she was at her parents' for breakfast and that they said hello. Lie. On that note, her parents love me and will be broken about this. I went and laid down for a few hours to run through what I would get from the apartment. Other than clothes and a few appliances, most of my stuff was already boxed as I knew that if we bought a house, I wanted an easy move. Around midday, I saw X go down to the car park and I gave it a few minutes after she left before I moved my car and went upstairs. It smelled like air freshener and I noticed new sheets and covers on the bed. All the dishes were done. She went to every length to cover up that anyone else had ever been there. It took me all but 10 minutes to gather all of my things. If I forgot anything, I probably didn't care about it. It did feel weird knowing it would be a goodbye to the place I called home, but I felt strong. X sent me a message asking where I was as she was at the arrivals area. I replied and said I was held up and that I would Uber home. Maybe an hour later, a bunch of missed calls and messages came in asking where all of my stuff was and if something had happened. My heart nearly beat out of my chest when I sent the photo of the shoes saying these aren't my size. She had the audacity to reply saying that they were her brother's from when he picked her up to go to mom and dad's. Did I not say she would pull something like that? I didn't even want to discuss it, but I knew she was cornered, so I sent the photo of them in bed and I left it at that. She did not even try to call. I was expecting a wave of calls or texts. In my eyes, that was me leaving her, and I know I could have called her out or caught them in the act and confronted them, but I wanted her to know I knew and that she would never be able to know how or explain herself. I will not tarnish her name as it is not in my nature and I do not want to ruin her life, but she can live with this forever, although I doubt she has a conscience. I have left Wise as I know X will be down to see her soon, and I met my friends nearby collecting today's rundown to relay to you all. If it were not for Y, this would have been a lot harder, but I know she will sever her friendship with X in the next day or two. I am doing well and looking ahead. This hurt at first, but I'm glad I found out now and not after we bought a home. I have sent an email to the property manager informing her of our sudden split and that she would be covering the rent until the lease ended and that she could keep the bond. I think the pain for X will be when Y and I begin our inevitable relationship. Good for you, OP, glad to hear that you didn't tolerate any of the crap your ex has put you through and have immediately moved on. You do not need to give her any kind of closure whatsoever. She needs to suffer the consequences for her actions and the pain she has caused you. If I were you, I would not get involved with Y right now. I feel like it is too early for you to do that. Instead, I would call your friends and family, tell them everything that happened, and ask if you can stay with them temporarily for the time being. If you're on a lease with her, then contact your landlord and tell them what happened so that you can get taken off. I wish you the best with your situation, OP. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's story. If there's a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care, everyone. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. I'm thrilled to have you join me today for another captivating story that will surely leave you both shocked and entertained. Today's tale revolves around an encounter with an entitled Karen that took an unexpected turn. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go. So, I work in a coffee shop. Most of our customers are genuinely lovely people, but over the years, I have learned about the levels of entitlement and just plain crazy that exist. To be honest, I didn't think anyone could surprise me anymore. Tonight's events might actually have surpassed the guy who put a curse on me and my family. The guy who threw a ceramic cup at my head one morning. The drunk girls who threw up all over the front door at 7 a.m. then walked in and got grumpy that we didn't have any vegan breakfast items. The time a guy managed to get himself so wound up that he started swearing at me because I hadn't laughed hard enough at his "if you can't find a product on the till, then it's free" joke. That I have previously never ever heard before. Ever. Honest. Yeah, okay. So today I was cleaning up like usual and for once, it was going pretty smoothly. One of those dream shifts where you look around and just know you're going to get out on time. No last-minute customers demanding you make drinks and mess up every piece of equipment you've just spent an hour cleaning. It was glorious. I did the usual rounds telling the last few stragglers that we were closing in 5 so if they could start finishing up and getting themselves ready and so on. And I went through to the office to start the admin. Now, one thing you need to know is our company policy states that you can't take the till off and count it until the doors are locked. Obviously, you can't lock the doors until all the customers have left. And this is usually not a problem. So I came back through to lock the doors and there she is. Let's call her Karen, okay? Karen is standing near the front door and emptying out the entire contents of her purse and pram all over a table. I looked at the girl who I was working with and raised an eyebrow. She's working with me long enough to recognize the what the hell is going on look. Apparently, Karen had lost an earbud. Great. So since she's been a regular customer for over a year, I put on my best customer service act and go across. We went back and checked where I knew she'd been sitting. Then check out the other table she had also been sitting at earlier. Turns out I never want to put my bare hands that far down the sides of the sofas again. We both searched and couldn't see anything. I offered for her to leave her details in case it turned up in the morning. I'm on early so I'd have another look tomorrow. But nope. This wasn't good enough. Before my eyes, this usually very normal, polite, pretty, reserved grown woman turned into a raging banshee. Screeching about how they are 150-pound earpods. Several things happened over the next half hour. Her husband appeared. Someone needs to give that man a medal, or maybe a CT scan. He quickly sussed out the situation and tried to talk some sense into her. She then started screaming about how she wasn't leaving until it was found. And she was calling the police. At one point, they were physically fighting over her phone while she dialed 999. And he was calling her crazy. Side note, never call a Karen crazy. It does not end well, my friend. I was standing to the side quietly watching this all unfold. Keys in one hand and phone in the other. While texting my boss what was going on and reminding her she really does not pay me enough to deal with this. Being the absolute champion boss she is, she called and heard some of that chaos going on in the background. Karen's poor husband continued to try and reason with her. There was a little more chat between me and him while she wailed down the phone at the police. She started demanding I go check the rubbish bags. Apparently telling her she was more than welcome to go check them herself. But they were in the skip bins at the back of the building. Was just not the right answer. Eventually, her extremely patient husband got sick of her so he left. At one point, she shouted at my colleague who asked her to move so she could finish mopping the floor, which set Karen off again. Her husband reappeared as she was kicking off at me again for stepping in and saying the girl didn't shout at her. And pointing out that after her behavior for the past 20 minutes, she was in no position to decide who is and is not shouting. It was at this point she finally pushed the limit of my patience when she said the words, "I am not leaving until you show me respect. You would treat me differently if I was from this country. Now something else you should know, I'm not actually from this country either. I might have the local accent but my birth certificate states something different. I'm also not white so I take particular offense when someone tries to use a race card in a racist way. Sometimes people are just jerks and it has nothing to do with the skin color of anyone involved. So my restrained customer persona slipped. I left one of those, "Are you kidding me?" laughs. I said the words, "Did you actually just call me racist?" "Nope, I'm out." While her husband started having a go at her for being ridiculous, I went and grabbed a till and stormed off into the office, half expecting to come back out and find Karen chaining herself to the front door and chanting, "We shall not be moved." About 10 minutes later, 2 wonderful police officers showed up. Karen had suddenly turned into a timid and demure delicate little victim again while whining about her plight to these guys. They also quickly worked out what was going on. Apparently the call they got had said it was a domestic incident. It was clearly not a domestic incident. They spent 5 minutes searching the same areas and also found no AirPod in sight and suggested she leave her contact details for us to call her if it turned up in the morning. Karen thought this was a great idea. I pointed to the counter and said the pen and paper were still sitting there from when we offered that same thing an hour before. Granted it was a childish move, but after hearing the police officers ask him where her child was while she played with the AirPod, my last silver of understanding and patience evaporated. Turns out Karen had freely given her very expensive, arguably overpriced headphones to her 4-year-old child to play with, then flipped out and called the police when one went missing. Seriously, I can't even begin to explain how livid I was at this point. Needless to say, she was heavily scolded and warned by the police officers. She actually burst into tears and she is now barred from the premises by orders of my boss. Best boss ever. So, I've started to get into belly socks, butterfly knives, like a couple months ago. I love it very much and I have a couple of knives. I love to do it in public too, but when I'm around people I always use my crack racking version 2.5, basically a trainer knife so it doesn't have an edge. Today I was walking with my friends and I was playing with my trainer knife as usual, when a kid runs up to me. Hi, what's that? Can I try it? The kid was around like 9 or 10. Sure, but do you have any of your parents here? Because I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, my mom is here. And he runs to his mother and comes back a couple of minutes later. Mom, it's him. He has that thing. The kid was really excited at this point. Can you show us some tricks, please? Sure. So I started to do a couple of easier tricks like a thumb around. Hey, put that knife away. You're gonna hurt us. No, I can't do that, even if I wanted to. This is a training knife, so it's fully dull and doesn't have an edge. And then, I grabbed a blade. Put that away or I'm going to call the police. If you want to, you're going to be the only one who's in trouble. So we waited there until the police arrived. Yep, she called him. So, what seems to be the problem here? This young man has a knife and hurt us. Her kid says. No, he didn't say anything wrong. The police officer turns to me. Is that true? You've got a knife? Yes, officer. I've got one in my pocket. It's a butterfly knife, but it's a trainer so it doesn't have an edge. Can you show it to me? Slowly. Sure. And I reached into my pocket and handed it to the officer by the blade. So he sees it doesn't have an edge. Okay, I see no problem here. Thank you, sir. And he started to hand me my knife, but the entitled parent snapped it out of the officer's hand and decided, I don't know why, to slap the officer. Ma'am, put that knife down and put your hands behind your back. Now. But I'm just doing what you can't do. Then she threw my knife full force to the ground. And the rest of the story was that the mother got arrested for lying to an officer, harming him, and damaging someone's property. And me and my friend stayed with the kid until his dad arrived. So without getting too political, we recently had an election in the USA. My aunt supported one side while her husband and adult offspring supported the other side. The election did not go the way my aunt wanted it to. Aunt proceeded to flip her crap, breaking things, yelling, and even going as far as to set her daughter's I voted sticker on fire. Her husband called the cops declined to arrest her for anything, but suggested that she find a different place to stay for the night. This happened yesterday in New Jersey. Fast forward to 2 a.m. today. Here I am sleeping peacefully in my home with my family, over 500 miles from all that drama. My fence alarm goes off, waking me up. I don't know if it's a bear or a trespasser, so I get my pants on and grab my shotgun just to be safe. Turns out, my aunt cut the locks off my front gate because she couldn't get in, and I wasn't entering my phone. Why did she have bolt cutters in her car? So I safely stow my weapon and ask her what the hell. She starts crying and screaming. Mind you, this is at 2 a.m., in a quiet rural community, about how the devil took her family and they threw her out. And she says that since she has nowhere else to go, I need to let her in, so she can stay in my guest room for a while. I told her one of my guildies is using that room right now. The room is occupied. This person came from Texas all the way to West Virginia to hang out with me. I'm not gonna toss them out with 30 seconds of notice because my aunt showed up. So she decides to call the police and tell them that I'm keeping her from entering her home. We're out in the woods, so the cops don't get here quickly. 4:41 in the morning, the cops showed up. I see them talking to her in my driveway. She shows them the bolt cutters and the ruined lock. A few minutes later, the officer knocks on my door. Your tenant claims that. I immediately cut him off and told him that I do not have a tenant. I own and occupy this structure. Then I offered to show him the deed. Well, this woman claims that. I cut him off again. What does the address of her ID say? At this point, the cop is pissed at me. I can tell. So I try to de-escalate the situation. Look man, she doesn't live here. She has never lived here. That's my aunt. She lives in New Jersey. Please check her ID card. The cop calms down a bit and lets me know that he will talk to her and then comes back. 10 minutes later, the cops come back to my door. 3 of them this time. Not just the one from earlier. One of them had stripes and a rocker on his arm. He asks me if there is any way aunt can stay here for the night. Because she's too drunk to drive, so he can't let her back on the road. This woman just drove from New Jersey to West Virginia drunk. Thank God she didn't kill anyone. I told him that she cannot stay here, but that I'm sure there is room in the local jail. The cop asks me if she can just sleep in her car in my driveway and leave in the morning. I told him absolutely not. When she wakes up in the morning, I would just have to call him to get her off of my property, so that would solve nothing, and I ask him to remove her from my property. Long story short, her car got towed and she is in a drunk tank for the night. I was a witness to this a long time ago and the results were learned by word of mouth. Once upon a time, there was a kid. Let's call him Marco. Marco was your everyday kid. A little skinny. I remember him being slightly geeky and if you left your pins unattended, he'd disassemble them before you turned back around in your seat at times. He was nice, polite and fairly helpful. This was middle school. One day though, he does it to a bully, and let's call him Polo. Polo is huge but was fat. He looks like if you drill 3 holes into him, a giant could use him for bowling. He's not nice, he's not handsome, and he's got a posse of equally disgusting friends who all gang up together to bully others. I suspect that if they hadn't ganged up with each other, they would have been bullied. Perhaps they have been in the past and got a taste of power over others when they ganged up. I don't know. I kept to myself. One day, I saw Marco with a swollen eye and wet hair. He's limping a bit too, and his backpack is ripped. I ask him what the hell happened, and turns out Polo threw him into a bathroom stall by his backpack, which ripped. The toilet got him in a knee, and Polo shoved his face into the water, bashing his eye into the seat. I asked why Polo had done this to him, and he says, I took his pin apart. It was just a big crystal or some cheap pin like that. Things escalate over the next few weeks. Eventually, Marco has to take time off when Polo strips him naked in the bathroom except for his boxers and makes him shove them into the toilet. The school, being full of your typical jerks, tries to expel Marco for damage to school property and does nothing to Polo. This is taught by video evidence of the gang leaving the bathroom, laughing and rifling through Marco's backpack, then tossing it in the trash. When Marco comes back, he's different. He's not happy. He's quite subdued, and he doesn't talk to anyone, and bruises magically appear on him between classes. He withdraws into himself and begins to look positively skeletal. Of course, no one at the school does anything except one nice jock. He comes across Polo stealing Marco's backpack and Polo into a trash can. Of course, he's suspended. But does it again when he comes back. The teachers give up on suspending the jerk after his parents threaten to sue. The fact that someone bothered to stand up for him, though, seems to have given life back to Marco. He starts opening back up and putting weight back on, which is very good. One day, though, he's wearing a scarf, a very special, beautiful knitted scarf. His grandfather had knitted for him. Yes, grandfather before he died. Polo steals it and comes back the next day with a bag of ashes, handing it to Marco. And he laughs hysterically. Marco comes back the next day with a backpack full of sugar-free Haribo gummy bears. Polo, being the glutton that he is, steals every single bag of bears and eats them by the throughout the day. Marco cries. But I remember something in his sobs didn't quite reach his eyes. Near the end of the school day, Polo lurches out of the classroom and pulls for the bathroom. He doesn't come back the next day. Or the next. Someone says they saw blood in the bathroom. Polo comes back a few days later with an eye patch and mottled, fading bruises all across his face. I believe it's called petechiae eye. He's permanently blind in his left eye, and bruising makes him look like a ripening fruit for as long as it lasts. He's in and out of school for doctor's appointments for a while. He did not mess with Marco again and instead became very introverted and quiet. The reports of blood in the toilet of the bathroom he went to were never confirmed. But it's quite likely. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I have an incredibly shocking and nerve-wracking story for you. It's about trust, betrayal, and the lengths one man went to uncover the truth. Imagine discovering that the person you love most in the world might be hiding something so devastating that it could destroy your entire life together. Well, that's exactly what happened in today's story. So, sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for, I caught my wife's affair with the butler, and it got worse when I fired him. 10 years into our marriage, I became very wealthy thanks to the percentage of ownership I had in my father's company. So, I bought my loyal and lovely wife a mansion for us to live in, which came with a butler who was prepared to take care of all the undesirable chores. My work schedule was pretty spontaneous because I could visit the office as I pleased or work from home. Our marriage and life together for the next 20 years after that were blissful, other than some odd moments and occurrences. One day, I arrived home from work to find the butler with my wife, standing side by side doing dishes. She was drying, the easier part, but I didn't understand why she was willingly doing any of the chores and standing so close to him. Their elbows touched a few times, and I coughed to let them know I was there. My wife jumped, but he just moved away from her a little bit. She said she felt bad he was in here all by himself, so she wanted to keep him company and help a bit. She was so cheery and warm, I couldn't tell if she had any ill intentions. Another time, I came home to find her lounging in the pool with the butler gardening and staring at her. They laughed a few times before I came out to greet them. It was clear that they were at least friends, but I didn't like how friendly they were. I thought I was just being controlling and jealous, so I accepted that my wife was friends with and cared about the butler. What was the harm in that if I trusted my wife of 17-ish years at this point? We spent every moment I wasn't busy together. I loved her, and I could tell she loved me. Yet another odd occurrence was when I walked upstairs to find the butler closing our bedroom door. It had been hours since I was upstairs because my wife was still sleeping. It was odd, and I asked him if she called for him. He jumped when I spoke and turned around sheepishly, although I could tell he wanted to act normal. He stammered and said she called to ask him for some water. I accepted that for a moment, but reminded him that he was not to enter our bedroom or open the door. He didn't know what to say besides, "Yes, sir." He walked away quickly, and I opened the door to find my wife in her panties drinking water. I asked her if the butler saw her like that, and she said no, she just took off her robe again. I was skeptical. I was heavily considering hiring a new butler. It seemed like she was flirty with him, at least, and I didn't like that he was most likely in our bedroom with my wife in her panties. Before I could terminate him, I saw him smelling my wife's panties. I know, it's really bad, really ballsy. I caught him on the security camera. I told him that was unacceptable and made my wife really uncomfortable. I didn't even tell her about it, but when I told him she was uncomfortable, he instantly looked like he didn't believe me. That ticked me off. I told him he was fired. I hired someone else, this time a female maid, since I knew my wife was straight. I decided that even if I was jealous and protective, it was a smart decision. 1 week later, I arrived home to find the maid outside gardening. I went upstairs and found the butler I fired coming out of our bedroom once again, except this time he was dressed in regular, but still kind of formal, clothes. He looked at me like he was amused, but inconvenienced because I was there and saw him. I asked him what he was doing in my house again, and he told me my wife hired him for something else. He said it with such nerve, all I wanted to do was punch his smug face. I told him to leave and not to come back, no matter what my wife told him. As he walked away, I went into the bedroom and found my wife wearing a skimpy little nightgown. I asked her what was happening, and she looked nervous. She said I was home earlier today than the week before, and I told her she always knew my schedule was spontaneous and not to change the subject. She turned red and told me I was freaking out over nothing. I asked her why she couldn't explain why she was here in her skimpy nightgown after the butler I fired just came out of the room. She was pretty stunned and said she hired him back for things around the house the maid couldn't handle. I asked if one of those things was helping her with her personal plumbing and lubrication. Her jaw dropped, and she couldn't look me in the eye. Her cheeks must have been burning, they were so red. It looked like blood vessels in her face were showing up. It was crazy. Her face never turned that red in all the 30 years we were together. She finally said in a weak voice that if he did help her with that, it was nothing against me. I told her that it most definitely was against me because she belonged to me. We were life partners, and only I was permitted to help her with her plumbing and lubrication. She said she wouldn't ask him to help her again, and asked me not to worry about it anymore. I asked if that meant she was admitting to sleeping with him, and she was silent. She nodded yes very minimally, with her eyes watering. Then she started speaking really fast about how it didn't matter, she just considered it a job, nothing meaningful that would take away from our marriage, and she needed me to forget about it so that nothing changed between us. I told her this was most certainly going to change things between us, and it already took everything away from our marriage. I told her we were over, called her a name, and told her to get out of my home. I was extremely careful to get a post-nup signed after I came into more money. It's not that I didn't trust my wife at the time, it was because my father and I were lawyers, which means I couldn't ever be made the fool. So my wife sorrowfully packed her bags. She had too many bags for someone with nowhere to go. The butler came to pick her up in the car he afforded with the paychecks I gave him. They stayed in a motel where the butler had been staying after I fired him. My wife had so many belongings, clothes, that she had to leave some of it behind, which I immediately told the maid to sell on eBay, or keep for herself. They stayed in that motel as long as they could, but their money ran out without me signing the checks. They tried to contact me, individually, blaming each other for what occurred and asking me to take them back into the mansion. It was gratifying that they were turning on each other and failing to survive or do anything with their lives. Even to this day, my ex still tries to ask me for help and gives me some updated sob stories about where she is in life. It is not glamorous, it's far from what she was accustomed to with me. I've become something like Bruce Wayne in town, and I have no complaints. Even though her betrayal hurt, I knew from the moment I found out that I could recover from it. Not because of my money, but because I know what love is. And it wasn't that. I am sorry your wife couldn't see what a great life she had with you. I honestly feel like the attention and sexual tension she experienced with the butler was too much for her immature brain to handle. It was a man in close proximity to her that she shouldn't sleep with, no matter how much he would have been willing. He obviously paid her attention, and when their friendship developed, she couldn't keep her legs closed. I believe she was egotistical and materialistic, and didn't have the respect she should for her providing and loyal husband. What this type of woman needs to understand is that resisting temptation pays off in the end. No man should be able to convince them to disrespect themselves and their spouses by breaking their vows and trust. I'm not sure what happened in your wife's head, but we are all here for you to offer support. Now let's get into our second story for today. One fateful day, when my wife went to work, she forgot her phone. I took the opportunity to check it, and was appalled by what I found. I should have known what was going on, because my wife, 25, was extremely excited about going to work suddenly. She said it was because she became in charge of a business task that she really enjoyed. It was something like designing different abstract images each day for a newsletter. I, 28, believed her. She was a good girl, and I was proud of her for earning us additional income for living expenses. The only other dead giveaway was that she didn't want to have sex as often, but then I knew why. It was because she was sexting with a coworker, sending pictures, and talking about the sex they had. It was disgusting. I drove to her work immediately. I backed up all the stuff for her phone, because although she wasn't getting it back, it was going to be deactivated. I brought it with me, and started by showing the receptionist, who I only met once before. Then I asked her if I could get a guest pass to go have lunch with my wife. She giggled and gave me one. She knew I was sarcastically infuriated, and this was going to be a heck of a show. She followed me in, putting up a "be back in 5 minutes" sign that she scribbled out. Everyone looked up from their desks to see me. I must have looked determined and angry. I asked everyone to gather around, and they did. I said I had some news to share about somewhere they all knew well. They were all sparkly-eyed with gossip endorphins when they found out who I was talking about. People started looking around for AP and my wife. AP came out of the bathroom just then, and we all looked at him. I announced that there was a guy who had the audacity to sleep with my wife. Some of the coworkers started shouting out insults at him. Among these, he was called despicable. Just then, my wife's head peeked out of her office. When she saw everyone looking at her, she went back inside and shut the door. Now everyone knew what my wife and AP looked like naked. Some girls whispered that they knew something was going on between them. Coworkers took the time to print/draw signs that said slanderous insults and taped them on my wife's office door. I thanked them for their creativity and left, wondering where the boss was that allowed all this to happen. When my wife got back to the house, I already had the locks changed. She took the stuff I let her have to AP's house. They both quit their jobs that day and walked out shamefully. In our town, there was just one major employer for like half the population. So when I shared with people the things my wife talked about and took pictures of, everyone in the area knew about it or saw it. It didn't take long for them to decide to move about 500 miles west. I couldn't have asked for a better outcome. Since she moved out of state, our divorce was made final through the mail. She didn't ask me for anything, thank God, but I would have been able to prove her infidelity anyway. She was done with me and the embarrassing past she was trying to forget. I felt the same way about her and couldn't be happier with the choice I made. OP, I am sorry your wife behaved like an untrustworthy office cheater. It's hard to get as low as a person who cheats on their spouse while utilizing their trust to earn income for the family. What are they even working for if not to improve the life they have at home? If they honestly believe the person they start an affair with at work or anywhere is better than the spouse they have at home, they're wrong. The grass may seem greener on the other side. Finding a person with a new set of features, issues, habits, goals, and interests is completely unnecessary. It is only a shame when a marriage or union ends because one spouse thought they found better in someone else or just thought they could effortlessly manage two serious relationships. Really, the only grounds for divorce, the proper way to end a marriage, is when one person absolutely cannot or will not honestly communicate with the other person. Thank you for sharing this story. I appreciate your bravery and bold confrontation. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Welcome back to channel, where we delve into the complexities of relationships and the bonds that tie us together. Today's story is one that will shake you to your core. It's titled, Caught Cheating, Husband Hires Private Investigator, Shocking Footage Revealed. Get ready to experience a tale of trust shattered and the pursuit of truth, as we uncover the secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Tell something was up, but I didn't press. She said she was tired. So I went with it over the next few days. I started noticing that she was on her phone quite a bit, even around dinner time. I would ask, why is she texting a lot these days? And she would tell me that she was in a group chat, talking with her girlfriends about the girls' night out they had and planning another one. I didn't think much of it at the time. She was constantly texting her girlfriends. It was nothing new, but looking back now, I realized she was probably planning something with them that she didn't want me to know about. My wife works as a consultant for a big firm and would always come home stressed. So I didn't mind her having a night out with her girlfriends every so often. But now she is talking about another girls' night out. This will be the second girls' night out coming up in less than 3 weeks. The bad thing is, these women she hangs out with, 4 of them are all single. She is the only married one of the bunch, which in my opinion is not a good thing because it means she is the only one with something to lose. The other women are footloose and fancy-free. I don't want my wife to be a cheater, but I also don't want to control her or tell her what she can and cannot do. So, her second girls' night out came and went. I told her the next day that she needed to be careful and make sure her single friends didn't cause her to fuck up her marriage. She looked at me funny, but didn't say anything. After work one day, I stopped by my parents' house and talked to them about my frustration with my wife participating in these frequent girls' night out parties. I told my mom that the women she hangs out with are all single and none of them have anything to lose. My mom looked at me and said, "Well, I don't see anything wrong with a girls' night out, but I do see a problem with a girls' night out with only single women." My mom said she is playing with fire. Then my dad chimed in and said, "Yeah, if I were you, I would put my foot down and tell her that's enough." He also said the fact that she keeps going out to party without you is a major cause for concern. Then my mom jumped in again and said she did a girls' night out with her friends. 3 times in the 40 years, my parents have been married, but my mom's girlfriends were all married. Mom said they were home by 11 p.m. They didn't stay out later than that. I thought about what they said on my way home and I decided they were right. I needed to nip this in the bud before it got out of hand. When I got home, I talked to my wife about it and she got angry saying I was being controlling and didn't trust her. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control her. I just wanted her to be careful because I loved her. She didn't want to hear it and went to bed angry. The next day she left for her girls' night out. She didn't even come home from work. This was her third girls' night out. I did not even know about this one. My wife didn't get home until after 2 in the morning. I didn't say anything. I just waited up for her. I pretended to be asleep. When she entered the bedroom, I decided I needed to find out what was going on and why she wanted to leave her family and party with her girlfriends on the way to work the next day. I called a friend of mine and asked him, did he still have the contact information for the private investigator he used for his company? A little backstory. My friend had an employee who was trying to get workman's comp for having an accident on the job. His employee was complaining after the accident that he couldn't come to work. So my friend promptly hired a private investigator. Turns out he wasn't injured at all. He was playing golf, played in a flag football league. Needless to say, he dropped the workman's comp claim. My friend gave me the number of the private investigator he used. He then asked me, was everything okay? I told him I wasn't sure. And I indicated that I think my wife is doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing. I said, she has been going out and doing these so-called girls' night out parties. My friend then asked me what made me think my wife was cheating. I told him about the 3 times she had gone out recently and stayed out until after midnight, coming home, smelling of alcohol. I also told him that when I confronted her about it, she got angry and defensive. He then said to me, well, it sounds like you have enough. I called the private investigator and set up an appointment to meet him after work. I met the private investigator and he asked me what I wanted him to do. I told him I wanted him to follow my wife and see what she was doing when she went out on her so-called girls' night out. The private investigator told me his fee was $100 per hour. And I said, I didn't care. I just wanted to know what my wife was doing. I gave the private investigator a picture of my wife. I told him what kind of car she drove, where she worked and what hours she worked. The private investigator told me he would start following my wife the next day. I waited impatiently for the private investigator to call me and tell me what my wife was doing. Finally, after 3 days, he called me. The private investigator told me to meet him after work. He had some footage to show me. He showed me footage of my wife leaving work in different clothes that day. On that day, she didn't leave for work in those clothes. She changed at work. He followed her to a bar. He went in and noticed she went to a table with a bunch of women, which were her girlfriends. They were there for about 2 hours. Then they all left. He followed them to a house about 15 minutes from the bar. He noticed a guy answered the door and they all went in. The private investigator was dressed in black. He tells me that at night, it helps him get closer for his surveillance. He walked up to a window at a slight distance and noticed all the girls were dancing, grinding on a few guys. And my wife was in the corner with some guy. He was squeezing her butt and she was kissing him. After that, he looked at me and told me, I think you have enough to do what you need to do. He handed me this flash drive and he told me he will keep a copy just as a precaution. After meeting with the private investigator, I went home and cried. I couldn't believe my wife of 9 years had cheated on me and she was still doing it. I wanted to confront her, but I didn't want to show her the footage. The next day I got up and left for work without saying anything to my wife. She sent me a text on the way to work, asking why I didn't say anything to her. When I left, I did not respond to the text. When I got to work, I made it a point to call a few divorce lawyers to see what I was dealing with and how I could protect myself. I also started looking for a place to stay because I knew there was no way I could stay in the house with my wife. I will miss the boys, but their mother did this. I was absolutely devastated. My whole world had been turned upside down and I didn't know how to fix it. The only solution was divorce. I wasn't going to try and fix our marriage. She wants this single life. She can have it. I had to be strategic because I didn't want the boys to be alone while their mother went out on her girls' night out. I live in Massachusetts, which is a no-fault state, that much I know. So divorce should be pretty easy. When I got home that night, my wife was home sitting on the couch with the boys. I walked in and she asked how my day was. And the boy smiled at me and said, "Hey Dad," I wanted to cry, but I had to hold it in. A few hours go by and everyone is winding down. My wife puts the boys to bed and comes downstairs and asks me if I want to watch a movie with her. I said, "No, I don't think so." She then said, "Okay, I'm going to bed." I waited until she was in bed to go upstairs and get my stuff and leave. I waited until she fell asleep before I left the house. I didn't have anywhere to go yet. So I went to my parents'. It was late. My dad was worried and asked me, was I okay? I told him I had something to show him. We sat down at the dining room table. I pulled up the footage that my private investigator compiled and showed my dad what the private investigator found. And my dad was in disbelief. My mom came downstairs and I showed her too. They were both speechless. I told them I was moving out and getting a divorce. They didn't say anything to try and stop me. I'm sure they were disappointed, but what could they say? My wife had cheated on me and I was done. I stayed at my parents' house that night. The next morning I got up, I sent my boss a text and told him that I would be coming in late. I was honest with him and he didn't have a problem with it. After talking to my boss, I noticed my wife had sent me hundreds of text messages, wondering where I was and why I left last night. I didn't respond to any of them. I found an attorney and filed for divorce based on the grounds of adultery. And I moved out of the house. I went back to the house when I knew my wife wouldn't be there. And I left a note on the kitchen counter. I told her that I had filed for divorce and that she could find me at my parents' house if she needed anything. After work, I drove to my parents' house and I saw my wife's car parked in the driveway. I went inside and I saw my wife sitting at the kitchen table crying. She asked me why I filed for divorce and I slowly pulled out my phone and showed her the footage and told her that I did not deserve this. I didn't deserve the way you were treating me. We sat and talked for a while and we both decided it would be best if we divorced. I told her I didn't want the house. We were renting it anyway, so she could have it. She makes enough money to pay for it. At the divorce hearing, it was amicable. The judge gave me 30 days to get the rest of my things. I didn't go after her for alimony. I made more than her and I didn't have to pay child support. She was getting that from the kid's father already. We are both the same age, 33, and the boys are 7 and 8. It was heartbreaking because I loved those boys like they were my own and I was their father in every way, but biologically. My job offered me a position out of state and I took it, changed my phone number. Only my parents and a few friends have my new number and started a new life. It's been almost a year now and I'm doing well. I've started dating again and I'm in a much better place emotionally. My friends have told me that my ex-wife was asking about me and she even tried to reach out to me on social media. But I have no desire to speak to her or see her again. I'm glad I made the decision to move on with my life. And I hope you can do the same if you're in a similar situation. Thanks for reading. I have never shared anything about my life on these forums, but this was heartbreaking for me. I still struggle at times, but one day at a time is how I am dealing with it. Thank you for joining us for this emotional journey. If you've been moved by today's story or have your own experiences to share, please leave a comment below. And remember, no matter how difficult the truth may be, it's always better to face it with courage and integrity. Stay tuned for more heartfelt stories